And I'm just pinning that so everybody sees it. Okay, I really wanted to let people know because I know people are waiting in the group and I want to make sure they don't miss a beat of this event. All right, so welcome to the Art of Being a Gracious Diva. This is about building a legacy with grace, right? This is about jumping in and being a leader, even when things don't want to work, even when you're not feeling your best. How to get into a place where you can feel confident and at your best, even if it's not, you know, all ideals and perfected as everybody seems to be able to do. And you can, with like a big enough team, you can. But when you're starting out in your vision, a lot of times you have to take a lot of those roles on yourself. And knowing what's important and being able to focus in on what's going to make the most impact, right, of the action that you're giving, of the energy you're giving, of the attention, the awareness. Yeah. When we are looking for that place for most impact, and it has to be streamlined to our skills, to our strengths, and to essentially our audience as well, like what we are trying to accomplish with our audience, like what do we want to help with them, for them, help them with, right? So day one, we're going to talk about how are we discovering and building our legacy of service and excellence. So most of us have a sense, we know that there's something deep inside of us that wants to get out into the world. We know that we have a service, that we know that we can serve, and we know we have a heart to serve, right? And the excellence piece is also important because for a lot of people, like they're just like, oh, I'll just serve anything. I'll serve a ham on a platter. I'll serve, you know, whatever somebody gives me to serve. And for a lot of my people, that's not good enough. They want to be of service in a way that is transformative, that is truly effectual, that will improve somebody's life overall, not just in parts or, you know, happiness for a minute, right? And so that is a big difference. And when we're talking about that big of a difference, often we're talking about what else is getting in the way of us feeling like we can share our heart and be heard and truly help and really be recognized as that voice that can make an impact, right? And so that's what's important about today. That's what we're going to get in deeper on today, okay? Day two, we are going to be identifying the ways to amplify the beauty of your unique genius. So if anybody's been following me on YouTube, you know I love a gene key, right? We are going to talk about gene keys today. We're going to talk about our astrological charts. How are they not, well, maybe not too, well, we'll talk a little bit about today. We're going to talk about relevant astrology for the day. But tomorrow we're going to be focused more on your personal, like what your personal cues are in astrology charts. So we're going to even talk about specific numbers. So have your references ready. If you have the human design book, if you have like anything from Karen Curry Parker, I love her as a reference for keys or gates in human design. And then the keys are the same. They're the same numbers, I should say, and they just have different descriptions, different ways of getting you to the truth of those numbers. And so we will be going into a little bit of the numbers that we were specifically kind of calling in for the energy so that we can become gracious divas during this event. We'll talk about that more tomorrow. And then look for it in your chart, like pull your chart today. If you don't have it, then go ahead and if you haven't, like a lot of my downloads, you can find it on, and I will add it. I will add it to the description when I'm finished here, okay? So that's day two. You want to get those charts out tonight, start looking at them, start reminding yourself where things set up so that when we go into it tomorrow, right, that you'll be ready to go and you can get a lot of information out of it, get some good notes that you can take and apply right away, right? Day three, we're talking about how we're going to start showing up for our vision in a brand new way, right? So maybe you've done some work already. Maybe you've gotten visible a few times. And so what we're going to talk about is recommitting, initiating the new version of your highly visible you, right? And then what that looks like and how to get started. And of course, I'm going to be talking about also how I can continue to support you, the different levels, the different ability, the different things that I have in place that will help you to tap into these really, really awesome tools of becoming a gracious diva. Okay. And on top of all of those things and all of those 3 days, we're going to be talking about maximizing your superpowers. That's going to be about, again, that'll be more tomorrow, looking at your chart, finding what those superpowers are. What is that gift? What is that city? How does it call you forward? We're going to be looking at how you can maximize that energy for yourself and how to take up your leadership voice and run with it. So being the full voiced you, going to that next level for greater impact and visibility, having more people being magnetized to your work and to your vision so that you can get the support you need in the right timing. And so you can have the clients that deserve you and you deserve them. I want that to be a mutual relationship, that there's no confusion about where the value is and all of that kind of thing, because we have been clear from the beginning on who we are and how we serve. Okay, so you will walk away from this event more committed to creating the space that your vision requires and empowered to impact and transform the people you serve. So as we go through this event, I want you to have this connection to this question in your mind, because when we listen with a learning ear, then we can hear something new. We get to expand our consciousness and that education to something that can be more expansive and beyond what we've currently can see, right? That's the whole point of spending time here or any place you feel like you can learn more. So the question is, write this down if you can, okay? What do I need to know to create a space of impact and transformation for the people my vision serves? Okay. We want to be open to new ideas of how we can be a greater impact. And why is that word impact important? The reason why I harp on it, the reason why it's the name of my studio, is because I'm not trying to have you make more work for yourself. I don't want you to be working harder to make this impact. I want you to have this impact made because of the work you're already doing. I know you're already doing work on yourself, right? I know you're already learning more about yourself, learning about how to be in self-care, how to be self-loving, how to bring more yourself to a space, how to let your voice out, right? I know you're learning these things on your own. My people don't stop in any one place. They keep learning. They're lifelong learners, right? So that's not really the problem, right? It's the, maybe we are doing action that is impeding our progress. We'll talk more about how vibration where you can get disruption out of just doing things that are dissonant, out of a need or desire to keep trying and working harder and then making it harder on ourselves as a result, right? That's what I'm trying to maneuver. I'm maneuvering you so that you have the tools so that you aren't like burning out in order to get the results that you need, right? And so that greater impact and visibility, like what does that require for you? I want you to hold that question in your head so that you can have your evolutionary spiritual consciousness start to bring that answer to you with this remembering of information. That's a reminder that I like to give to my clients and my students. So people who have been through my online courses before have heard this already, but I'm going to say it here because I feel like all of our time is super precious right now. And if we're going to spend time on something, then we want to be impactful, effective. You want to apply it, right? So the reminder is that you want to ask questions, even if you're not going to send them off to me, which I would prefer, so I could, I can just curate this for your own needs. And the more specific the questions are, the more I can speak directly to your needs, right? So if you ask me questions, that's great, but also to yourself. Why? I gave you a question. I think it's a great overarching question for these 3 days, but I want you to ask your own questions. I've learned the power of asking your own question. Why? Because it is your inquiry. We're all one. And if we're all one, learning is remembering. So anytime you hear something new, it's just a recollection of yourself, right? A recollection of your spirit body, your universal consciousness, God in you, right? And so in order to do that, you have to engage your larger self. How do we engage our larger self to more possibility, more expansion, more truth? We ask a question. And when it's specific to how we're feeling, what we need, what we are desiring, then we have a better answer. Okay. In the same way that I work, right? If you ask me a more specific question, then I can give you a better answer, and your spirit works the same way. Okay. And maybe, spirit's going to use me to answer your question today. Right. So keep those questions in mind. If you're going to be here, you might as well get the full effect. Right. So that's what we're in today. I wanted to kind of do an overarching kind of a news report of what's going on. I was like, do I want to do a full astrological report? No, I do not. I have a JQ transit astrology video that I do on YouTube every new moon and full moon. So that will be coming out tomorrow. But in the meantime, I'm just going to give you 2 points of reference of what's going on in the astrological world. In the Western chart, it is how I track what's going on in our 3D land-based existence. That's how I think of it, okay? And so the first important thing is that the moon will be full by the end of this, right? By tomorrow. So the third day will be under the full moon of Sagittarius. That is going to be in gate 34 or gene key 34. And the gift of that full moon is strength. Why I love this so much is because it's so much. I did look at the chart, but I didn't pull up words at the time I was looking at charts for this event. Okay, I do look at charts before I claim a date. And it didn't come up like that, right? It didn't come up as a gene key, as an impression for knowing that shadow gift city. And then when I looked for it, just to start for today, I was like, because I forget things until I need to remember them. It's kind of how my brain works, right? I saw that shadow of force and I was like, ooh, that's why, life is perfect. It's always happening perfectly, because that shadow of force is what keeps us from the graciousness of divadom. Okay. How can we be a gracious diva? And I don't mean this. I mean, yes, it's important to be nice to others. And I feel like my people are already nice, right? They're heart-centered, they're loving, they're amazing, loving, open-hearted people. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about graciousness that honors your feelings, how you are feeling, and how others are feeling. We tend to be overly focused on the external, on other people, and it keeps us stagnated. It keeps us working too hard and trying too hard and burning out. And we're going to talk more about why that is not where we want to be. Ultimately, that's not what we're looking for. Okay. So let's talk about that. We're going to, I'm going to talk about kind of the main things I've been seeing going on where people are being challenged in this current day and time. When I go out in the world, what do I see? Okay. And we're going to talk about how we're going to approach that as gracious divas. We're going to see how that looks a little different. Okay. And this first one, the reason why we're talking about this astrology is we're not going to force things. We're not going to try to make people or force circumstances to conform to what we think we need, right? We're going to open, allow, magnetize, attract the things that are aligned to our highest possibility, our highest prosperity, our highest self-expression, why we came to the planet. It's another way of saying it is the purpose, right? And that's, I don't usually say the word purpose because people automatically go to profession here. And I'm not talking about profession. I'm talking about you have an energy that is you as an entity. You are energy first more than anything. Okay. And then what does that energy do even when you're sleeping, even when you're not working, when you're not helping everybody else? Okay. What does that look like? We want to get familiar with that. That's what we're talking about. That is why we're here. Because whether we just sit down and breathe oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide for the rest of our life, we're still here for a purpose, right? And you know, you can ask anybody with a family member that doesn't have full capability to act and work and walk in their purpose right now in this day, how meaningful that person is in their life, right? That is just never a question for me, but it is something I like to remind people of. You are already serving the world, and now we want to do it consciously. We want to enjoy being able to serve the world. We don't want to feel like it's another job. We don't want to feel like, you know, it's not possible to be ourselves. So we don't want to feel like we can never make it to the outcome that we are perceiving is possible. Our full desire. Okay. So that's pretty much the first thing that I wanted to make sure that I covered. That's what I'm seeing most of. We do not believe that our desires and our visions will be supported. This came up actually in one of the moons, I can't remember which one, last month in April, or maybe it could have been earlier this month. Okay. And this came up, right? If we don't believe our desires will be supported, we will not act on them. So we're going to talk a little bit more about getting specific tools to move out of procrastination on day 3. But that's something I just want you all to keep in mind. If you believe that your desire and your vision will not be supported, then we have to check in to how we're referencing our universal consciousness, God, for those who believe universal consciousness is God, right? And so what we need is to be able to feel like we're being supported. Now, I think because we can't physicalize our universal consciousness, our unity, our God, right? Then we often want physical representations. And one of the things that we do in the Omans Get Vocal method, the Omans vocal resonance method, is we feel that in our bodies by reminding ourselves that the earth is right below us. It's held us up our whole lives. If we haven't felt supported, because we're not recognizing how grateful we can be for the earth holding us up, sustaining us with her wonderful bounty, right? And so that's something I want to make sure that y'all get, at least walk away with that today. Okay, if you don't feel supported, then get connected to the earth, get connected to nature. You are nature. And I have a great video on YouTube on my playlist where I have an interview that we talk about how we are nature and why it's important for us to remember that when we're being leaders, because we want to co-create something that is in creation mode and something that is cohesive with the planet, right? So that's just a good place to start overall, connecting back to nature. Now, another one, not feeling safe to be yourself. So this one, for a lot of us in the Americas, I wouldn't say maybe not all the Americas, maybe I would focus in on the United States of America, right? That we have problems going on a massive level, right? But for now, right? For today, we have free speech. We can be safe to say what we need to say. And I know it doesn't always feel that way because people are attacking each other out of fear of what's going on in the world. And I want you to know that we can build and sustain safety within our bodies. And right now, it's a little bouncy. There's a lot of energy moving back and forth. I know it's a lot. People are getting taken out either by being sick or having headaches or just not being able to focus, right? And I feel the same way. I mean, there's a lot of things I would have done if that wasn't happening in my life as well, right? And so I get it. And I want you to know that it's still available, right? If there's not a tiger right in front of you, if it's not a tiger right in front of you, you can feel safe, right? And then you can make sense if you want to go there. But I believe Spirit's got your back on that too. If we're tapped in, tuned into Spirit, which is what we're going to be learning about during this event, then you can be aligned with the words and the actions that will keep you safe as well, right? It's always available. God is always available. The universe is always available. The earth is always there, right? So it's available. It's available. I know it doesn't always feel that way, and it's valid, absolutely valid, but it's available. Okay. Starting a business of prosperity and time freedom to focus on spirituality and getting stuck, creating a job for themselves. So this one I saw coming a ways back, right? I mean, business is an investment. And if you think of investments, like you think about the earth, it has cycles. The business has cycles, the earth has cycles. There are just ebbs and flows, just like the beach, the tide goes in and out. That is natural. So when it's ebbing, like not to go into panic mode, same way you wouldn't hit panic mode if you're in the stock market. If you said you're going to be in there for the long haul, then what you worried about, right? Because you've already made your decision. I want you to feel that way about why you're here on the planet. I want you to feel that way about your energy. I want you to feel that way about your vision. Like you're in it. Like bad times, good times, you're in it, right? And what do we do during those cycles? What do we do in the ebbs? What do we do in the flows? Having a plan for that is what business is, right? And so when we're not willing to look at the cyclical nature of a thing, then we're not responding to the nature or the natural happening of a thing. And then we get discombobulated, unregulated, unrhythmic. These are the things that cause disease and all of the things. But right now we're talking about leadership. Leadership. And like what happens is that we just don't show up. We procrastinate. We don't believe in our product anymore because it's based on some idea of what we thought was going to be needed externally. But as you can see, the landscape externally, how the world looks, what the world needs is changing, and it'll continue to change unless we are talking to the heart of things, right? Which, all the ad people already know. That's why they have whole families of different organizations of society and culture and all the things, because when we see everybody together like that, and there's that truth, that connection is why we're here. It's happening in every useful ad, right? It's that connection, either through joy, being entertaining, through music, through bright colors, right? Or through just, magnetic people who are open to connecting, or family dynamics, or you're just passing food and love on, right? So this is how it works. If we are connecting back to what we are truly here for, then we get to be part of that cycle. And when we are unconnected from that is when we get disjointed, when it's not working, right? So that's what we want to learn, what we're learning, okay? The other thing is that people are paying a lot of money for courses that they are not using. Guys, if we're buying out of fear, if we're buying out of escapism, and I get it, like, small things, especially, like, go for it. But it is a time to save, right? So if it's at all possible for you, let's be in connection. Let's buy things that are immediately within our path. So that doesn't mean it's that you hope that it's the answer that you've been looking for, right? But it's actually what has been coming up for you, what's next for you to act on, what's next for you to remember, bring into remembrance. That's what we want to be looking for. Okay. And yeah, if we're only looking for the flash and the bling and the I'm only gonna make you a $10,000 in 1,000 days. Hopefully it doesn't take 1,000 days, but you know what I mean. If we're only stuck to the big and flashy and the bright personalities and all the things, and hopefully I'm bright for you today, but I hope that's not the only reason you decide to move forward with me if you do decide to move forward with me, right? Feeling lost in cycles of procrastination. And this is something that happens when we just can't get a beat on it's not obvious anymore what's next, what should be next. And the way that the world is going, the more confusing it's getting, the harder it is for people, because we've been taught to determine that by how the world is going. And a lot of the astrology for this year has been, no, the only thing that you need to be focused on is your purpose. And if you don't know your purpose, you don't know anything. You don't know where you're going. You don't know how to get there, right? You don't know if, any one action is meaningful. It starts to eat at your soul, right? Because now you're like, well, then what am I doing here again? Why am I here? What is going on? Like, am I, it gets really precarious at that point. I like to talk about mental health a lot because people with visions that aren't acting on them can get highly depressed, highly anxious, highly overwhelmed, highly, they can be suicidal. Why? Because a visionary is holding a vision by themselves, right? A visionary, and it's not always true. I mean, it's not really ever true. Like there's like, if you're holding a vision, if you're holding an energy, it's because the world needs it. And you're not the only one holding that, right? Whether that's even at different levels of support and whatnot, but it can feel that way because you may be the only one for your house. You may be the only one for your city. You may be the only one for your county, right? Depending on what the vision is, you may be the only one. So if it can be lonely, if we allow it, which isn't usually a problem for a lot of my fellow introverts, right? We're okay with being alone, but if we're also shut off and alone, no longer participating in alone, right? No longer sharing our light, our energy, our service and alone, like we need that cycle just as much as everybody else, and it'll come back in, it'll compress us back into a feeling of depression if we allow it. That's a we, y'all. I'm an introvert. Like I can allow that to happen for myself. So the question isn't even like, I'm not asking you to be perfect all the time. Again, this is a changing rhythm, but again, in that cycle, if the cycle stays down, then we're not in a natural movement. And like a down cycle can be various things. Like it can look like a day, it can look like a second, it can look like a year, right? But we are in a time of movement. So I would just check in with yourself and recognize, like, is this something where we're saying that I don't know when I'm going to ever be out of a down cycle? Or is it something like, I know I'm going to be out, I just don't know when yet? You feel the difference with that? Like as soon as I know, I'm going to be so excited. That's often how I feel. I'm like, please tell me, are we out yet? Like, that's how I feel, right? So instead of getting lost in the cycle, not knowing if we're ebbing or flowing or what's going on, that at minimum, we can locate ourselves. May not be happy with where we are in that mode of cycle, but we can recognize where we are and we're like, okay, well, this is where we are. What's next looks like. So that's something I love to talk about, just recognizing those ebbs and flows so that we don't shame and guilt ourselves, because in shame and guilt mode, back into depression, right? Or back into a place where we're not going to be in effective, impactful action, right? And that doesn't mean all the time, right? I don't want you to be burned out, but enough for now. All that's available for now is how I talk about that when we're talking about voice. All the breath available for now. It may not be all your breath that you have, but it's all that's available for the now. And it's just a matter of meeting yourself in presence, in action, for right action. This feeling that we can't get anything right, this feeling of restriction, of failure, of being silenced, of expressing yourself. This is the other thing I'm noticing going on right now. Yeah, I mean, this one's a hard one for me because this is my shadow. This is my shadow in my purpose key of Gene Keys. And so this is when I'm being bounced around. That's why I've been talking about, like, in the astrological energies, I feel them very sensitively. I also feel how other people are responding. If I'm not maintaining my energy, my aura, my field, my signature vibrational field, then I get this bouncing, bouncing, bouncing. And it's like every time I'm not aware right now, which just tells you, well, tells me what the environment overall is, right? Because I've had months where I've never felt that at this point because of my work, because of my practice. So for me to be feeling that, it's like, okay, like as soon as my awareness drops of my field, like I'm getting this bombardment. So if you're feeling like that in just in general in your world, if for me, it feels like, you know, this constant focusing on that shadow, like it's like every time I come out of that awareness, it's just shoving you back into that shadow. Oh, the shadow that I'm talking about is failure 42. So it often feels like I'm failing if I'm not in my awareness. I can let everything mean that I'm failing if I'm not in my gift of awareness here. So my gift being veneration, it is actually how I think of legacy. I can't be in action. I can't be in impactful action on my legacy if I feel like a failure. It's just those things don't live together. And I can't say it's never happening. I wish I could. I can't say it's never happening, especially right now. But I tune in, I do the work. You know, the work is the Oman's method, in case you didn't know. In my house, it looks like the Oman's method. And really that coming back to cycle. That's why I love doing these things cyclically throughout the year as well. I have 2 events a year. I have this one and I have Voicing Your Vision Summit, right? And why that is so powerful to me is because I get to learn what I already remembered. So a lot of what I'm telling you today are things that I have to remember when I'm feeling that way. And so it just wraps back around because I'm working, doing my business on my purpose, right? And so that is what creates my constantly rubbing up against those things that will shine and the challenge points and those shadow points, right? So yeah, the point I want to make sure that we walk away with today is that we're here to build a legacy of service and excellence. That's what the people that are in my house are looking for, right? Like if you've ever come into my wonderful little containers of my courses or come into my studio, that's what I'm working on, right? It's, to me, it's not good enough. I can be of service. It's not just good enough to be of okay service. Like if I'm going to be here, I'm going to be at the excellence that I am ready to be at. How much of that can I be is the real question for me, right? And how are we embracing your inner diva connects you to your prosperity in the Aquarian age. This is the other part of what I'm hoping that people can walk away with here, a renewed evidence that your full self-expression as diva is what the world needs now, and therefore your access to value and prosperity at this time in the Aquarian age. We're going to be embracing our potential, that energy that is us, that wants to be shared, that burgeoning potential, and speaking our vision. Now, what I want to get to right now is why Gracious Diva? Like for this, and when I first started this series, and I put up, how do you define Gracious Diva? I had people telling me all kinds of things, right? They were telling me, oh, it sounds like oxymoron. What? An oxymoron. Like I was like, you know, in the opera world, we like big things. We like bright things. We like lots of sound. We like lots of energy, the big stages. In the opera world, there's nothing bad about being a diva. You know, it came out of from what I was taught in my histories at university, right? In my master's degree, we were taught that it came actually out of the ballet industry. It was the diva was the #1 ballerina. And it actually got moved into the operatic circles, I want to say around the bel canto period, because we had an opera that was built around a ballet dancer. And so it became, well, the #1 singer, the biggest role as a woman was the diva. We actually even, now in modern days, we actually use the word divo as the masculine representative. But I've argued, and a friend of mine, Dr. Shannon Wong Lerner, has also argued that it's not gendered, that term diva. But it's everybody's choice on how they use it, in my opinion, right? And we all get to have our opinion. So that's part of it. I just want to make sure I get to these elements here. All right. So yeah, how do you define diva? For me, again, it's somebody who knows their vision so completely, and they are a voice for that vision. They're standing on it. They're defending it if necessary. Hopefully you don't have to do that, but sometimes your vision is that important that you know you're going to have to defend it. It may get a little heated at some point, and we're okay with that when we can build that safety for ourselves. It's when we can't build that safety, and that's part of the work, right? It's when we can't build that safety that it becomes precarious and we want to run. Okay, so what do you think of in that word? What is it make you angry? Does it make you like, ugh? What are some of those feelings? I want you to write them down because I think it's a good relationship to find out, what do I think of a woman who is so loud, so bombastic for what she thinks it takes to be effective on stage, is how I think of that. And you'll notice that it does apply to a lot of singers. A lot of singers have been known to throw tantrums backstage, right? I always defend my divas on this one. I think a lot of divas are voicing what they need before we ever get to that point of explosion. I mean, I've never really exploded backstage, but I have exploded to my husband, right? But it happens usually because, okay, we've already said this, or there's, you know, we've already done this before. These are things that shouldn't be surprises about what I need in order to show up at a big level. And when I'm showing up at a big level, what it takes to support me, right? And that's something we communicate to the people behind the stage. We communicate that to the people directing the action, right? And we don't have that huge, big team. It becomes, who are we putting in place so that we have those structures of support in the actual people in our community. It can look like just a friend that you call up, or it can look like a business buddy. You know, guys, everybody needs help. So even if you don't think it's possible, I want you to reach out to people who are doing the work that you appreciate. Maybe they're building a business, maybe they're building a nonprofit, maybe they're building Maybe they're just building a community garden, right? But look for them and be a buddy with them. If you know you have a vision and they have a vision, support their vision. And they can support yours. Like, be in that agreement with them. It doesn't always take an outside person, but we do need support, right? And we need to also not think that it's not available. I mentioned joining this Gen X movement, and it's about us being, latchkey kids overall, right? Overall, over everything, not needing people, not needing, to be emotional. Like, this is what we're claiming pride to, right? And I honestly, if I haven't done the work that I had done to this day, I would probably feel the same way. Okay. I would probably feel the exact same way. So to me, it's kind of hilarious because that's something that I'm constantly, when I am in that mode though, now I think of that more as my shadow mode, because I know my path of expansion actually wants to build community. I know that about myself. This is part of what I learned just from being myself over the course of the years and looking back at my own stories, but then have them highlighted through astrology. Those stories are highlighted in my chart. I can look back and see where, yes, I felt more effective at this point because I was in community, because I gathered community, because I made a community happen. Right. And so just recognizing that that's just something that I do when I am doing things, it tends to happen because that's what I do. Right. It's just a result of my life. And that's what we want to be able to do. We want to be able to find those things as evidence in our life so we can start believing in the value we have to give. That's part of what we're going to be doing tomorrow. Remember that. Okay. And what do you think it takes to become a diva? This is another thing. I think we would respect and honor like big leaders, big voices, big singers, big personalities a lot more if we knew what it took to show up like that, right? If we understood that. It's a lot of what we talk about in the studio, because if we're not recognizing and valuing it in others, then we're not allowing it for ourselves. We're not allowing ourselves to be heard at that level. We're not allowing ourselves to be supported at that level, right? And this is the trap we keep falling in, and why we keep blending into the background, and why we aren't getting our visions forward, because we have been taught to have our focus on others. And well, as long as I'm really nice and I'm really taking care of everybody else, then eventually somebody will see me and then they will help me do what I want to do. Not if you don't ever say anything, hon. You can help people, yes, but not to the point where you're trying to get something out of it. And some of us are doing it subconsciously. We don't always know we're doing that. But if you get disappointed, if you're disappointed because a friend doesn't show up the way you thought, or a community doesn't show up the way you thought because you did this for them, while you were doing that thing, did you ever tell them what you were also doing? What you were also doing is being yourself with your own vision and your own voice and your own message. Did you tell them about that? Did they even know that they could show up for it? And so what we're doing is we're trying to serve other people, but then we don't ever mention ourselves, and then think it's just going to miraculously happen, that somebody's just going to notice you one day. When we do that, we're basically saying that, yes, I'm here to serve you, but we're not saying that I have a even greater way to serve you. So it's our responsibility to mention those things. So are we getting mad when other people are mentioning those things? Are we getting mad because the diva is blowing up backstage because she doesn't have her Diet Coke or whatever she feels she needs to be diva-like on that stage? Right? Are we like, oh my gosh, what is she so upset about? I'm sure like if your necessary beverage to make sure that you sang like Celine Dion wasn't on the backstage, like you would be like, how do you expect me to show up as Celine Dion without my designated beverage? Right? Like you can't, so I won't. That's where the tantrum comes from. because I know what it takes to be seen on, and I takes that. So if you can't give me what I need, then I can't show up as you expected. That's where that comes from. It's like that blow up, those explosions come from, like, I told you what I needed. Like, if you can't do it, like, get out of my way. It's this big, expansive feeling, right? And it can look destructive if we aren't connected to our purpose, right? Because otherwise it starts being, your energy is being shared without intention. Because a well-intentioned energy is not going to upset anybody else. That's the truth of the matter. But when we have so much coming through us for the moment at hand, it's an important moment. You got to be able to tap in, tune in, turn on. That's what I like to say about our signature vibration. So what would you like to create with your voice? What are y'all working on? What are y'all working on? What are you going to be a gracious diva about? Is it a song? Is it a story? Is it a vision? Is it a business? What is it? Huh? hopefully I'm getting some responses. Let's see. Let's see if I have any chat bots. I don't see any chats yet. But it's coming, I believe it is. So we are considered, we're here to be considered of service, but we're not here to be taken as servants. Those are there's a difference. And I get it, like, especially in Christianity, we want to be servants of God and of people. And yeah, I think that there is that level. And I think there's a point when your service has nothing to do with anything but the service. Like if you're washing feet, if you're handing out food, like that's what that's about. You're not going to mention your vision while you're washing feet and handing out food, right? This is more so for the neighbor you brought over the grocery they forgot, right? This is more so for, this is for people that are attuned, are even at the level of attuning. That's why it's so good to find somebody else with another vision, right? Because when you find somebody with a vision, then they get it. They get that there's inspiration, they get that there's a feeling of failure, they get that it takes work, it takes growth, it takes self-development, and they get it on a level that other people just cannot, or not available to get. And that's the other part. Some people, like if you're worried about, your next meal, nobody's worried about your vision, right? So we want to talk to the people that already have those things when we're talking about our vision too. And that's not necessarily that that's the dominant conversation, but that is what you want. You want people who can see it, who are even on the horizon of it, because the vision, again, is you hold it by yourself. So you need somebody who at least is on the same plane of, oh yeah, and that distance, I could see how that, oh, that may be another lake. Oh, wow. Right? Oh, that may be another resource. I didn't realize we could build resources over there. Wow. That's what you need. You need somebody who can see it. So like, this message isn't for random people. This message is for people who've already done some of the work. They've already done energy work, probably at some level, shape, or form, either on them or have seen it, been in the room, cacao works, ceremonies, voicing. Maybe you've done some kind of singing, or you just realize that when you chant or do some kind of vocal meditation that you feel better afterward. And you're just like, wow, how can I do more of that more intentionally? These are the people that are usually going to see this vision of the voice being the transformative instrument of the body, right? Because they already know the throat chakra is the voice chakra. They already know that the throat chakra also is called the manifestation chakra, right? So it's clear to them that this is where spirit is meeting the body, and that's where we get to make our ideas realized in our physical materialized livingness, our world, our 3D world. And then we get to also put up petitions into our full energy body, up to God. We can participate that in a real conscious energetic way in which we are getting to experience the joy of that exchange and not just our Father. Wow, like with no connection whatsoever, right? Like, and then we wonder why we feel like far from God or far from unity or far from love, right? We feel alone when we aren't. The truth is we aren't. So what allows us to feel that way? So yeah, we already talked about a little bit, like what I want you to be aware of what tends to be the unseenness is that instead of having everybody else's visions being served, showing up for everybody else that has a vision and never speaking yours, now you're going to show up for other people who have a vision and then tell them you have one too. Where are you in the process? What are you working on? What would it look like if you were fully supported? Right? This is part of holding the vision, being the diva for your vision. Okay. We're going to move from this blending into the background, only in community support mode, only in handing out the tissues and the Bibles and such. Yeah. If we're only there without a soloist point of view, then we never have the energy moving towards the possible outcome of the vision. Right? How can we build a legacy if we never even think about it? How do we build a legacy if we never even talk about it, write it down, make a plan, share it? Right? Like how? It doesn't happen without that. What we're here to realize that the more we are speaking from that singular perspective, from the thing that makes us lonely, that we know, yeah, this person might get it, this person might get it, this person might get it, but this person's going to think I'm a complete crazy person. That person over there, no way are they going to understand what's going on. And they might actually think I'm a bad person for it. How do we stand in our own energy even when we are not sure who's going to hear us? That's what happens online. That's why a lot of people don't want to go live. They'd rather have the prepared speech and all of the things, right? And they'd rather record it and fix every I need my ums. I don't know about you people, but I need my ums. My ums help me to focus into my body. Or I pause. That's the other option. You don't have to use an you can just pause and take the time to reconnect, check in with your purpose, check in with your energy, and come from there. And that's the other option. Okay. This is how we are seen. This is how we are, we can be inspirational. This is what makes us unique. This is what makes us memorable. It's by coming from our singular energy. Our singular energy, the only we came with our stories and our experiences and our values, just us, right? So when we become gracious divas for our vision and business, then our work gets the support it deserves and reaches the people who need it. And then we can build a legacy of service. Okay, so for some of us, we are different. We are way different. So it might take a little longer than others. Okay. It might happen in small increments. That's okay. Because in the beginning, we might only have enough energy for small increments. We don't have a team yet. Some of us don't have a team yet. So do we need thousands of people calling us right now? Or do we just need 3 or 4? Right? That's where we want to be in a point of impact. Why put, when you're putting out a work for 1,000, let that be over a course of time when you're calm, when you're energized, when you're restored, when you're in one of your, part of your seasonal natural cycle that is ready to pull everything in that you need to make it look abundant on the other parts of the cycle and throughout the cycle as well. We want to plan for the whole cycle, the ebb and the flow. Okay. So yeah, so transformation, we want to have that transformation of being able to pattern safety. What does that mean? Okay, when we're doing the Oman's vocal resonance method, what we're doing is we're using vibration to entrain a habitual feeling in the body. So we literally can entrain the feeling of safety. We can entrain, and once we have that vibration, now we are creating out of that pattern. So a lot of times we keep running a pattern because it's just what we're used to, right? And so when we are reaching for what's next, it's going to be out of habit. And then if fear is taking place, you're not going to want to look anywhere. You're just going to be like, well, I did that before. I'll just do it again and just hope for the best, right? When you are consciously, vocally creating what you need, you can call in what the potential is and then align yourself to that. Number one, again, it's going to get you back on rhythm, but you're also going to call that potential to your known purpose. We're going to have that anchored first. That's the first thing we do in vocal creatrix is anchor that. Well, not the first thing, but it's part of the vocal creatrix course, which is why it's the first course, right? And that is what we want to do. We want to have that anchored and trained in our bodies. Once that's entrained, we don't have to think about it so hard. We don't have to make awareness happen, right? Right. There's a difference between feeling rattled in your cage and your whole body feeling disconnected from the earth, which was my old pattern. My old pattern was complete disruption, complete lack of thought, people want an empty mind, but I literally could not track a single thought. Not useful. Right? Like when you're in panic mode and you're like, I need something to do, and blank happens in your brain, that doesn't feel safe. That was my pattern. Right? So being able to be like, oh, okay, I need to reset, I need to tune in. Okay, like a rattle, and then okay, I'm being rattled. Time to come back to center. Time to come back to where I know I'm safe, where I know I can access safety, where I know I can access abundance, and making that the habit. Okay, if I'm being rattled, going back to what I know, going back to what I've entrained within myself. And that way we can continue to show up, even when it doesn't look perfect, right? Because I know it doesn't look perfect, but I committed to showing up. And I do my best. I mean, I'm a human, but I do my best to show up when I say I'm going to show up, right? Okay, so the next thing is that we're going to be noticing how oversensitivity is actually a superpower. This is something that we got lost in the sauce when we were being raised introvert. People to this day, especially my age range, they refuse to admit when they're introverts. Like everybody's an extrovert. Okay. Right? Because it was somehow made a bad thing. Like if you're an introvert, then you're not a fully functioning human being. Like, who got that? No, but I mean, a lot of people like me are introverts out of being overly sensitive, highly empathic, highly sensitive. I don't like to say over because that looks like too much like two, right? And that's what a lot of us people were telling us, or that's how we perceived ourselves, as too sensitive while we were growing up. And so we started to be like, well, if I could just be less sensitive, less in touch with my emotions, then it won't be a problem. But what happened was that we lost our voices in the process, because in order for us to be effective with our voices, come from a place of impact and intentionality, we have to be attuned to our senses, listening with all of them. That's part of what we're going to be doing tomorrow too. Okay, we're going to listen to all our sensitives and what they want, our senses and what they want to tell us. That ability to hear and read and feel at a high level is a superpower that we can use to make more impact with less effort. Believe it or not, it happens. When I tell you, if all goes according to plan, I'm going to tell you what happened during these 3 days for me, moving into full moon with intentionality. Yes, You know, a lot of things I would have developed in a different way if I had more attunement more often. And what's going to happen anyways, because I'm allowing what wants and can be allowed in the moments that I'm available. And that's all it takes. It doesn't take constant 100% perfection of attunement. It just takes awareness and being willingness to come back to it. And if we're getting lost, that we come back to it, that we come back to it often enough that our bodies remember it for us. That's what patterns do for us when we're working out regularly, then our heartbeat starts to maintain itself regularly, right? So that's what patterns do. They will match our initiation of patterning. That's what entrainment is, okay? So yeah, so when we have mastered by the end of this event, Art of Gracious Diva Mastery, right? Will look like moral, energetic identity, physical and resource integrity with courage and trust. Why do I say all those things? Those are my ideals. I like all of those together. If that was one word, would be closer to my energy. That's what I want for everybody, and my ideals, and my gift, and my superpowers. That's what I pass on when I'm being of service. Right? So that's what I want for everybody. I want all those things to be available and in integrity and breeding courage and trust. Yeah. And clear boundaries, although I don't love that word, but it's what most people understand. But essentially, our signature vibrational space clearly defined by our intention, right? And the ability to preserve your integrity of that you are in the right place. This is the kind of final thing that I want to make sure that you have as a takeaway today. We tend to compromise our integrity because we're feeling afraid, and that we can't afford to be all of ourselves in the place that we're in. Now, for some of us, that's literally true. Some of us are in places where we're being abused, that we're not valued, that we don't even know, like, if we can continue to live or sustain ourselves in that place, right? So that may not be the right place for you. So you might actually want to move to a right place location. Like, what can never be wrong? Nature. Like, if you go out to any, find a tree, hug it, I recommend it. You talk to it. If they talk back. Like, if you go to nature, like, it will receive you, right? You can make a right place there. So yeah, if that's all you get to do to find that right place and that safety feeling, it'll start bleeding into the places that you need it as well. Like in other places, if you need it more at home, if you need it more at work, if you need it more when you're showing up for your vision, then it'll be there if we go be there, right? And with nature. So what I want you to think of, that right place, is that we're going to start as Gracious Divas, and the people that are joining us for Vocal Creatrix, we're going to start building that entrainment of I am in the right place. Why? That is our sense of safety. That is our sense of safety. And nobody can actually give that to us. We have to give that to ourselves, because it's a perspective of self. I am in a place. That is our perspective of our human bodies. Yeah. So if we are going to allow ourselves to feel safe, then we have to recognize, oh, I get to be here. I am in the right place. I decide where I be, right? And wherever that is true, we go experience more of that. So if the only place is true is out by the tree, then go experience more of that. So we can entrain our body and our vibration so the pattern will breed outward. That's what true expansion is, that pattern of light moving outward. Yeah. That we are transmuting and creating more light with that transmutation. That's the whole point. That's the whole point of all the work is. all the workers. So yeah, our Gracious Diva is about that life. It's about that life. It's about recognizing our own energy, our own power, and representing it and allowing others to be served by that. Okay. So yay. So yay. Yeah. So tomorrow we're going to get more into that, mistaking your strengths as your weakness. Oh my goodness, never, ever, ever. But it's so true. Our differences, how we think, how we feel, what we expect out of life, who we expect to respond to, who we are being, all of those things, we keep expecting for people to think that that's a bad thing. So that's a part of what we need to retrain. Right there, right there, right there. So yeah, tomorrow we're tapping into that cosmic wisdom, that cosmic wisdom. We're going to be looking at our charts. So yeah, let me remember to put that as soon as I log off. I'll put that in the description so you can pull your chart if you have not yet done that. And I am I'm not gonna be able to do that during the event, but maybe after the event, if you stick around, I'll give you a bonus of being able for me to do your chart for you, like do a physical chart. Well, not physical, but PDF. All right. So there's that. I can do that for you if you like. Remember, day 3, we're going to be talking about your business. How does it look to start showing up for your business and your vision? And but tomorrow, bring that chart in. We're going to get in deep on what it looks like to bring our powers to light. What else do I want to say? Oh, when we're talking about starting and showing up for your business vision, that one is going to be about what are we procrastinating on? What does procrastination look like for us? And so does it look like essentially when we're feeling more fear than safety in the vision? Okay. This is what's hard about feeling safe in the vision, is that it doesn't feel real yet because it's not materially around you as much as you would like. So there's a lot of great things that you can do, but we're going to tap into our charts and our senses tomorrow so that we can start knowing what it looks like for us, like what's showing up around our procrastination, what's triggering it, and what's triggering our shadows and our fear cycles. And then how do we effectively shift that? Yeah. So our Gracious Diva for the day, did I say it already? I don't think I did. Our Gracious Diva for the day is the Diva archetype of director as Diana Ross. And what I love about Diana Ross is that she's an icon. She's obviously a singing icon, and she's also done amazing work like many divas have. But she's known for being the speaker or spokesperson for the Children's Day. So Children's Day is something where, they're remembering and making sure the children have what they need. And that is a day that they present before Congress and remind them of the needs of the children, essentially, right? And she was that spokesperson, right? And that is amazing. That's amazing that our visions, even our artistic visions. So a lot of us have been told our artistic visions aren't important, which is just nonsense. They are serving the world immensely, I promise, at every level. Beginner to extraordinarily talented, professional, experienced, practiced individual, right? They're always highly valuable. And when we have our voices and we appreciate our voices, we can help them. They can help us serve the world, serve the children. That's what we want. We want to be able to amplify to that level. That is the point. So the characteristic that we want to take away for the day is having a powerful voice, that your service and vision is going to reach your clients because you are clear and your voice is clear and it's clearly voicing the vision you hold. So having a clear vision that can be understood without the confusion of being overly modest, humility, humbleness. These things are perceptions. Unless you feel somebody's below you, you don't have to worry about being humble, right? That's my big thing about that word. Like, stop looking at people like they're worse or less than you, and you won't need to be humble. You'll just treat them like human beings that are also worthy of love. And that's the extent of what we need to worry about in that regard, right? That you're valuing your unique and powerful voice. Again, we're going to be doing a little bit more detective work on that tomorrow. If you aren't valuing it, then you don't know it. So if you don't know it, join us tomorrow so you can get to know it a little bit better. And what makes your voice unique and powerful is what makes your voice in speaking authentically and with memorability. That's what that allows, right? Like when you know it and you know it's superpower characteristics, then people hear it when you use it. Yes, I think my method is also helpful with that. But Oman's vocal method, is something I talk about regularly in my videos. So tap into that in the process while we're here. Like if you can, check that out a little bit, because I want you to start today. I want you to start today. You can, so why not? Okay. You have a vision, and therefore people want it and need it. Okay. You have a vision, therefore people want it and need it. Why? Because you've come to the earth, your body, this life, with the energy that people need. And that desire, that vision that's burgeoning out from that desire is because that's what you're here for. So the more that we just, again, I like to say baby steps if the big steps go too hard, because that little tiny bit of movement is going to give you more energy for the next thing, right? With awareness, I always say with awareness. So Oman's method, that's why I mentioned that first, and then movement. Even if it's a tiny movement, just a little one is good. It'll work. I promise you, but it'll go further than one. You'll go further than one step. That's how it really works. So know your art, your song as a diva, your concert as the diva. Know how you want it to look. Know how you want it to feel. Know why it's important to you. Because the clearer you are on that, the more you will attract, magnetize the community that not only loves to be available for the vision and walk in the vision and practice and journey with you on that vision, but will continue to tell your story, right? I have amazing, beautiful, amazing clients I love so much because I continue to share my work, even though I haven't done as much as I want to do for them yet about that, right? Like I'm building an affiliate program, but it's not fully affected, right? And so they are just giving out of their hearts and out of how they believe the work should move forward. And that, guys, I want that for you. I want that for you. I want that for you. So beloveds, I will see you tomorrow. You're going to get deep into those charts. I'm going to go get those things for you now so I don't forget. And I will see you then. Ta-ta for now. And I will see you for Gracious Diva